How do you feel that transition went for you? Like, what pushed you towards Terminal Nation?
Okay, so with Jungle Juice, so Kirby, who was playing drums for us in Jungle Juice at the time, he had moved up to Fayetteville. And so it was just really hard to kind of, like, we did a lot of touring, but it was really hard to just kind of get together to practice, to play shows. And I don't know if we all just kind of, like, lost the motivation. Like, we had interest in a well-respected, like a hardcore label was really into our stuff, and I thought we were gonna like, hey, this is the thing, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
And like whatever. But yeah, after that it was, I feel like a lot of us just kind of like maybe lost interest in it, and then it became more difficult. So there was like a year where we played like 3 shows.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to do something. Like I want something.
You still
more.
had that need that needed to be fed.
And then, right, and also so like Jungle Juice over the time our existence, we evolved too, because it was just like shitty punk music at first, and then it became like sludge driven, like really really heavy, and it had like the lyrics. Okay, so I scratched my snotty punk itch sonically when we started the band.
Yeah.
But then when we got really heavy, the lyrics were still like dark, self-reflective, and then I was like, this is not really like punk music in the way that I see it anymore. So I want to start a punk band.
Yeah.
And when I say that, and people who, with Terminal Nation's most recent LP, the one that came out a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the metal media just calls that a death metal record.
Yeah.
I wouldn't argue it. Like, I'm not mad at that. I wouldn't argue with it. I would still say it's predominantly hardcore. But
it has those elements though in there you just really can't deny.
Yeah. But I think people would be weirded when or not weirded, but like being like, that sounds off when I say that I started Terminal Nation because I wanted to start a punk band. So people that know us from like our most recent releases are like, this is not punk.
But if they revisit some of those earlier days, they might understand that connection.
Or in my opinion, if you read the lyrics, we're a punk band. I mean, like if you're
what's more punk rock than fuck the system?
Well, fuck you. If you don't tell me what I am, and I'm not. But,
exactly.
I mean, well, it is what it is. I'm not mad at a lot of labels get thrown at us. I mean, some of them I'm like, oh. But but yeah, so I wanted to start a punk band, and I was friends with Chase Turner at the time, and Jungle Juice wasn't doing a whole lot. Like, I just want to play shows, like even if it's just locally. Like I'm really into like Infest and just like faster type of hardcore stuff. Left 4 Dead, very punk leaning.
I love Infest.
Very raw, yeah, just very raw, like shitty recordings. Vocals are almost like silly, like very unique, very like original style vocals, but they sound organic. You don't get up there
overproduced, isn't
right.
Really
you don't sound
like
a robot. You sound like
natural.
You're yelling. Like if you get into a fist fight with somebody in a bar and you're screaming at them, that's how I want the vocals to sound. Like I'm legitimately pissed off, not like
you want to hear the emotion behind it.
Right,
you want to hear that anger and that angst.
So we were like, yeah, let's do it. And I swear that first demo tape we did, I think Chase Turner wrote the whole thing on a bass, and it was. Like, people might look back at that compared to our new music and say this shit is so basic, but it's very well done. I think it's very catchy.
I loved it.
I think it's very well put together. I listened to it not that long ago. And I was like, man, this is gonna be bad. And then I listened to it. I was like, kind of rocks.
I mean, every band's got to progress.
It started off as a punk band in the same way Jungle Juice did. It started off as a punk band, but in that demo, we're like, I want to touch on things that I think matter, and not just like I don't want to just write lyrics about. I'm depressed. You
put a focus on it.
Yeah. So, I mean, even in that first demo, we have a song like about somebody who's like a deadbeat dad and like doesn't give a shit about the kids. We have a song about the, the pharmaceutical, like big pharma in the United States. Stuff like, stuff like that. And like,
you got a lot of songs on the new one that's, touches base on some really heavy issues. The timing of that release to me was pretty pivotal in addressing a lot of those issues that we're facing in our country and stuff like that.
Totally. I think when it came out in August of 2020, which was like peak, or the announcement of the record was in June of 2020. So this is like peak Black Lives Matter protests across.
And just so we can hear you say the name, just like say the name. Say the name of the EP.
Holocene Extinction.
Yeah.
Out. I think there's a few copies of it. Like very few copies still available on vinyl through $20 spins. So go order them. Scoop those up because it's going to take a long time to repress right now with pressing plants being backed up.
It's pretty crazy.
So back to the most recent record.
Yeah.
So when Holocene Extinction, it was our debut LP, like our first real, in my opinion, our first real record.
Yeah.
Or full length record. But it came out, like you said, it came out at a time in the middle of like the announcement of it was in June of 2020, and the album, we dropped a single in June, we dropped a single in July, a couple singles in July, and then the full album came out in August, first week of August of 2020. And so that was like in the middle of what we lived through during the pandemic, one of the biggest civil rights movements in the history of the in modern history.
Yeah.
And like, so there was protests every night, and like, very experienced and wise career musicians will tell you don't ever read the lamb goat comments about your band.
Yeah. You read them?
Well, yeah. I was just like, we were just so overwhelmed with like publicity, like when it first got announced. But like there was people that were like, well, this band is definitely an opportunist band because they wrote this record to release, right? And
that's because they didn't know you.
I was like, they wrote this record because of what's going on. They know that it's gonna sell and I'm like, if you only knew, you fucking idiot.
Yeah,
we wrote this record a year ago, and it's just now come seeing the light of day or whatever.
When people think you write a record, it comes out the next
month.
Right,
the next week. Yeah. But it was very. It came out at a time, and I don't want to, because it sounds callous when I say it came out at the right time. Because there was more important things going on than our record release.
Well, obviously, but you have to have that voice too, and it's important for people to speak up.
Right. Well, when people say that they were watching TV and they were seeing, a man being murdered by police officers, and then they say they're not happy with the world that this is the reality of the world that they live in, and then this record drops, and they're like, this encompasses everything that I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, okay. Like, that's awesome.
That's what you did.
Because we almost debated on not putting the record out. Like, these things, like you said, it's not like, oh, you record it and then it's out the next week. I mean, we recorded it, I think, in September of the year before. It didn't get sent off to press. We didn't get a deal with our record label until, we didn't meet our record label until January. And then, then it didn't get sent off to pressing until March. And this was, like, we were thinking we're going to tour all summer on this release. And then the pandemic happened, and then and then George Floyd's murder. But like when it came out, we were almost like, it doesn't feel right to release a record now.
Yeah,
but it's already like in the pipeline, and we were just like, I mean, it's not the right time to release a record.
Somebody's got to say these things, though. You know what I mean?
Right.
And part of the purpose of having, bands like Terminal Nation is because you give people a voice that might not have it.
Sure, totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And you get to scream that shit in a microphone when people really want to do that every day.
Yeah. And then when I would see like clips of people at protests with boom boxes playing our music, I was like, okay, fuck it. Like,
this is the fucking anthem,
let's do
bro.
Let's do it.
Go.
Whatever. And a lot of the writing of that was lyrically. So I wrote all the lyrics, but the weeks leading up to writing it is me and Tommy would like sit on the phone together or text back and forth, or we even met up a few times. I mean, we would like stay up late into the night going into the studio, like getting the lyrics right, because I'm a person of color. But the Black Lives Matter movement it ain't about me. It ain't about me.
Yeah.
And like, this was a year before all the George Floyd stuff. But I was getting his perspective, his input. He tweaked some things here and there on stuff, and he wrote like a lot of the instrumentals too. Like that, he put a lot of magic and a lot of his emotion into that. And then like, I think he was just like, this is coming out. I mean, when the guy in the band that wrote the majority of it, that helped me with the lyrics, and I was like, I don't know if this is coming out the right time.
He felt good
and
about it.
And then the black dude in the band is like, no,
this is the right time. Yeah.
This is the right time.
Yeah. So you're kind of talking about, different subjects, touching base on discrimination and things like that. I think that, coming from a state like we do experience a lot of that, firsthand, and we've either personally experienced prejudice or discrimination in different forms, or we see it happen in front of us.
100%, yeah.
Politically, on that scale, our representatives are not representing everybody as a whole.
Never, yeah. Totally.
And I feel like the country has gotten a really bad taste in their mouth about our state in particular. And what I really like about Terminal Nation and how I felt about you guys when you came out, especially with your newest record, is you did give a spotlight to our state, in my opinion, on a more global scale, so that people could look at our state and go, oh, they're not a bunch of fucking rednecks that
totally.
hate black people and want, pregnant women to have their babies even if they have a medical condition. What I mean? Like all of these restrictions that we put on our people in this state, through the politics and different things that they put into place. I mean, I feel like Terminal Nation had that voice that we needed people to see. I feel like it's important for us to produce these types of bands from our area, because it does show a different light. And
I agree.
I like that people hear Terminal Nation and go,
right.
Yeah.
That's always cool, yeah.
Fuck this shit.
Right.
We don't like this shit.
And,
we don't believe this way.
Right. And, Arkansas, contrary to maybe popular belief from outsiders looking in, we have good people here.
We do.
And we have great people.
Yeah.
And we have good music. We have great musicians here. And so I like that you said that, because one of our goals going in, I worked a lot with Tommy, but I also talked a lot with Dalton before we went into the studio, and I was like, sonically. So Dalton is a lot. He comes up with a lot. Him and Tommy are the two writers in the band right now. And Dalton comes from a more metal perspective.
Yeah.
He's kind of taken over the lead on sonic creative style that we've kind of taken a hard turn to. But talking to him, I was like, dude, so we look up to these bands like Wake, like Living Sacrifice, like Paul Bearer, and all the guys in those bands that I know personally are great people, but they're fucking great musicians too.
Yeah.
And they write incredible albums. And I was like, I just want to write an album that could be in the same conversation as them.
I think you did.
Yeah, so thank you.
I think you hit that pillar.
Means a lot. Thank you.
I think you really hit that pillar with that album for sure.
And I think, in hindsight, I would agree. I would agree. But I was like, I look up to them so much. It would just be cool to be, in the same, write a record on par or like close to or in the same stratosphere as the incredible albums that those
people noticed.
Those
I mean, you guys got a lot of press on it. You really did.
I was very overwhelmed.
Yeah, a lot of bigger media outlets really, came after that album and really appreciated it.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I read a lot of reviews on it, and I was really happy to hear that.
Yeah.
So I think you did accomplish whatever you were trying to accomplish as far as being on a certain level. You definitely did.
Right.
And I feel like you guys definitely,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think you guys definitely accomplished, getting your voices out there. There's a couple of different songs that I feel like, and I know we've kind of talked about what songs hit really heavy for you, on the album. And I think one of those would be Master Plan. And to me, lyrically, it's a great song. Musically, it's a fucking badass song.
Sure.
Like I listened to the album a lot today in preparation, and just hearing that song, that's one of my favorites for sure. Cool. It is. It's got that doomy, that's my roots. Wake, you mentioned Wake and stuff like that doomy, sludgy, grungy, grimy, fucking dirty South metal.
Right.
That's where I come from.
Yeah.
That's my 13, 14, 15-year-old years was spent in Old Man Kirk's listening to Wake in the corner, watching Goat Whore and Wake and, Soylent Green and, all these bands like Acid Bath and stuff like that. So hearing that kind of influence throughout the album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all over
really made me happy because I was like, oh yeah. Y'all been listening to Wake.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, let's touch a little bit based on, these lyrical content of the actual songs. So with Master Plan, I know that you've kind of went through this with, Brooklyn Vegan.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I did pull little excerpts from that,
yeah.
So you've kind of already went through and explained every song on the album and its meaning. So, but, I kind of want to do it for us too.
Totally.
Master plan. So, like.
So that was the second single. I like it at the end. It's got that hard breakdown, but like there was this. And maybe I don't know if other musicians or writers do this, but I'll keep like a notepad with me close by at home all the time. When I get like a good idea or a lyric or a one-liner, even just whatever, I'll like jot it down. And when I was seeing a lot of like the xenophobia in the Trump administration that we saw with people, migrants and refugees coming from the southern border, where they would come over and then there would be these nuanced little holes that they would have to jump through to be able to claim asylum, and then the goalpost started moving. It's like, no, that's not asylum. Go back to where you came from. And then it's like, they're literally fleeing death, and it was just frustrating to see, especially my mother. Before I was born, but my mother experienced a lot of that. She came from El Salvador, and during the Trump administration, there was a big spotlight on it. But shit has been going on forever. I mean, there's a lot more. It's hard to hide nefariousness anymore. Because we got social media, we got phones, we got 24-hour news. That it's not always been like that.
Yeah. News travels fast now.
Right. Yes. Overnight or instantaneous. Yeah. And so this shit has been going on for a long time, and a lot of people were like, well, these folks are trying to seek asylum, and it's this fucking phrase that just irks me to death, because they're like, yeah, it's hard. Sometimes they get sent back and they probably should have stayed here. They probably should have qualified for asylum. But, it's a hard process. They got to learn this. They got to learn that. They got to pass these tests. They got to prove that they're going to be a monetarily beneficial part of society, this, that, and the other. And they're like, yeah, it's kind of a broken system. No, it's not. It's not a broken system. And people use this about the prison industrial complex, about police and how they interact with minorities or poor people in general, how they interact with anybody. It's a broken system. They mean well, but these things, no, it's
strategic as fuck.
Yeah, it's not a broken system. And then the line that I wrote that I like, it probably is my favorite line in the whole album, is, the system is not broken. This is exactly what it was intended to be.
Yeah.
And it comes out so natural in the album that I think I might have just paraphrased it or gotten the quote wrong. But it's something that I truly feel. So it's not rehearsed. I think when I recorded it, I said it like 4 different ways.
Yeah.
But I did that because it's not like, I committed this vocal pattern to memory. No, I'm speaking from the heart. So the system is not broken. It's operating in the exact way that they intended to. I mean,
this was designed and set up a long time ago.
Right. You could go as macro or as micro as you want to.
Yeah.
In the prison industrial complex.
We could do a whole episode just on that.
Totally, utilizing slave labor to pay for, work. The major corporations reaping the benefits of slave labor, and the laborers are prisoners, and those prisoners were put into prison for nonviolent offenses. And
kept there.
Right, and then it's like a chain, and then if you look back into the 80s, those drugs were given to them, then plagued their communities, and so it's a chain reaction. It's all strategic.
Yeah.
And that's
absolutely,
that kind of sums it up. It could fall under there's a lot of different things in our country or in our world that could fall under that, but the system's not broken. It's operating exactly how it was meant to.
I mean, that's a perfect segue into the other songs that we were going to talk about, and one of them in particular is about the pharmaceutical industry.
Sure.
Orange Bottle Prison, and that one to me I feel is a little close to heart because of the industry I work in. But I can't talk too much about it.
Totally, yeah.
But the industry I work in with marijuana, I mean, I feel like in a sense we're supposed to be the kind of the catch-22 cure for the pharmaceutical, not cure, but like an alternative that might be a little bit more natural and helpful than, say, popping a pill that might hurt your liver or your kidney in the process of trying to help you with something else.
Sure.
It has its purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
But it's misused in such a way that it harms people.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
The pharmaceutical industry as a whole is strategically designed for people to stay unhealthy.
Yeah,
they feed
totally.
and gain momentum off of sick people.
Right. They don't make any money when they cure you. They make money when you continue to need.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's, you could talk about just medicines in general, or even a topic in the last few years, vaccines and stuff. Like, I mean, there's definitely a conversation to be had that the vaccine, saved the world, saved countless lives, whatever. But these companies didn't do that out of the kindness of their heart. It was they seized the opportunity. They were opportunists, and they made off pretty well.
Yeah, and they still
with the vaccine that our tax dollars financed the research for.
Yeah,
maybe you could, like I said, you can make an argument that they saved the world and they saved countless lives. They didn't do it to be nice. They didn't do it.
Yeah, and there's not enough research on a lot. I know we were kind of crunched for time on certain things to find some kind of thing to eliminate, this stressor that we all were dealing with.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's hard to even really understand, if these things are helpful, if they're not. We really don't ever know. None of us know what kind of, adverse reactions we'll have in the long term from any of this we've experienced.
Sure.
But in general, the pharmaceutical industry has
they're
definitely...
not your friend.
They're not your friend.
I mean, and there's prescriptions that help you out.
Yeah.
But they're not making them to be to be on your team.
You've got a lot. What I've liked and seen over the last several years, especially the last 4 or 5 years, is that some of these companies and their executives have started having to answer for what they've done.
Yeah, and they all should.
Yeah.
With the opioid crisis, I mean, that's totally
That's
a totally manufactured thing.
Before we had COVID, we were having a massive amount of deaths due to opiate overdoses, especially with amphetamine what is it called? Fentanyl. When fentanyl was really and I know these drugs have been around forever, but when it started really, people started lacing different things, and the underground market was a very dangerous situation anyways. But when people started lacing it with that, the pharmaceutical companies created that drug.
Oh yeah. They created that problem. They created the and in turn, with opioid addiction comes homelessness, comes
it's a trickle down.
Yeah, comes crime, comes this, that, and the other, and it all stems from one thing, and it's pushing that product for you to buy.
Absolutely.
And so and that's kind of what that song touches on a little bit. I mean, we could get into more specifics, like with insulin. Insulin was.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to.
I had friends that were very sick and needed insulin and could not afford to get it.
Yeah,
and resorted to some very bad, unhealthy tactics.
Evil,
yeah,
how that shit. Every so often they
tweak that price.
They tweak the formula just enough to where it can't ever be patented. I mean, I don't want anybody to call me out on my history off the top of my head, but I feel like synthetic insulin just about 100 years ago was invented, and the patent was sold to a university for the betterment of humanity, coming from an honest man. He sold it for $1, just so there's a paper trail of it, so that people that have diabetes or insulin deficiencies or pancreatic disease, whatever, that need synthetic insulin, this was a game changer. This changed the world. And then people the pharmaceutical industry has seen just how vital and just how unique this is.
Yep.
And it's like, and this is not the best comparison, but maybe people can relate to it now. But it's like when somebody asks you, have you seen gas lately? The price of gas? No, because what am I going to do? Not get gas?
I have to get to work.
Yeah, exactly. If it's $1 a gallon or $8 a gallon, I still got to get it. So, but it's like insulin. Regardless of the price, you have to have it to survive.
Yeah.
The people that need it, they have to have it to survive. And the pharmaceutical companies know that, and they prey on that.
Yeah.
And so that's
preying off the sick.
Orange bottle prison. Like an orange medicine bottle.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are living in that orange bottle prison.
Oh, I definitely agree.
They're prisoners to
yeah. I mean, I could use my mom for example. They just when you get to a certain age in this society, they write you off. And they're feeding our old people just drugs. And our young people too, but I see abuse of elderly people just because they don't want to help them with their actual problems. They just want to feed them with sedatives or medication to feed their problem, but not help them cure anything.
Sure, and there's a bigger conversation to be had there too, where it's like, are they taking advantage of them because they feel like they wouldn't be in the know because they,
or they're going to die and they don't want to waste their time. Exactly, that's how I feel like they've treated my mother.
And it's inhumane.
It is definitely. So kind of moving on to the last song that we were going to touch base off of that album, Casket of the Poor.
Yeah,
Caskets of the Poor.
Caskets of the Poor. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So the line that I really like in that, and I think people will be able to kind of relate to this now because there's been talks of further conflict in parts of the country and how far will this go? Will the U.S. intervene? Well, the U.S. always intervenes. They intervene when they don't intervene, whether it's on paper or not. They've been either monetarily or boots on the ground or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been at war for a long time. I know a lot of people were like, "Hey, Biden pulled the troops out of Afghanistan recently. Thank God this is the first time in 20 years that we haven't been at war." No.
We're still at war.
Look at Syria, look at Yemen, look at all these countries that in some way the U.S. has stuck their nose into.
Yeah.
Whether it be, directly or indirectly or by support of a predatory regime that's surrounding or funneling weapons to them or whatever the case may be. So the lyric that I wrote in this song that I really like, because it's the people that sign off on war aren't the people that are dropping the bombs. No. The people that sign off on war aren't the people with the boots on the ground getting blown up. Again, I keep going back to this phrase. Okay. There's a bigger conversation to be had about the folks in the military. Are they bad guys? Are they good guys? Men or women? Are they wrong? Are they right? Whatever. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that. I view a lot of them as victims themselves.
Yeah. Victims of the system.
Yeah. You look at they put Army recruiters in high schools. That's fucking insane. That's insane. Other countries look at that and they're like, that's insane. So in high school, depending on where you're located, is 12th grade, 9th to 12th grade, whatever, 10th to 11th and 12th, whatever. But you're dealing with 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. 14, 15, 16, 17. And they see an Army recruiter, and they may not be old enough to sign up yet, but they're at least exposed to that. And, when they get exposed to that, they get normalized. And it's like, oh, maybe that's just something I do. And sometimes they think, oh, I come from a poor background. There's no way in hell I could ever go to college. This is going to be the only way I could afford to go to college. So I'll go do a couple tours in Iraq. And I'll come back and go to college.
Yeah, a lot of them use it for that. Yeah.
Right. And so it's very predatory in that sense, where it's like they might get that initial $35,000 sign-on bonus. It's more money than they've ever seen in their life. It's more money than their parents have made in a year.
Yeah.
And it's just it changes their life, but it's like at what cost? So the lyric that I like is pledge allegiance to perpetual war and the flag that blankets the caskets of the poor. And so that's where the caskets of the poor comes from, because we're, if you're dying for a flag, when you're dead, that flag means nothing to you other than a garment that's laid over your casket.
Yeah.